You're listening to Retail Media Unboxed, the podcast that goes behind the scenes of the fast-evolving retail media industry. In this one-on-one interview series, we sit down with top industry experts to unpack the trends, insights, and strategies shaping the future of retail and advertising. In this episode, I'm joined by Colin Grieves, Managing Director of Experian Marketing Services in the UK and Ireland. Experian has been working with consumer data and insight for decades, and Colin brings a pragmatic perspective on how third-party data, interoperability, and privacy-safe enrichment are helping retail media networks unlock both scale and effectiveness. We talk about why first-party data is still foundational but no longer sufficient on its own, how changing consumer behavior is reshaping retail media activation, and why high-quality data is going to be the real differentiator as AI becomes more deeply embedded across advertising. Colin, welcome to the show. I'm so pleased to have you on today.
Thank you very much, Richard. It's great to be here and be invited. Thank you.
So for starters, tell us about your role as Managing Director at Experian Marketing.
Yeah, sure. So, well, first of all, most people have heard of Experian, and where they have, they'll know that we're a primarily credit business, credit reference agency, where banks take data to help make lending decisions and consumers can get their credit reports. But we've had a marketing business for probably over 30 years. And as my title says, I run that in the UK and Ireland. And in dead simple, what we do is kind of help organizations understand more about consumers. So those organizations can be anything from a brand, a retailer, a travel company, telco, whatever you, advertising agencies, ad tech players, media owners. So the full range. Help those organizations understand more about consumers so they can make better decisions around marketing and advertising. Now, that could be what's the next set of products that we want to try and build for our customers. Who do we most want to target or speak to about these products and services? How do we get the best messages out? What channels do we want to use to communicate? So there's a whole range of things that we do around that to help those organizations. And at the heart of what we do is data and insights. That's our bread and butter. That's how we've built our business. And everything we do is predicated on our understanding of UK consumers based on that data and that insight.
Well, let's dive into that. So for a long time, first-party data was positioned as something of the holy grail. What is starting to break down with that narrative for retailers and agencies in this year?
Yeah, I mean, so we are a third-party data provider, but it's always been the case, and it should always be the case, that first-party data, that data that is collected by an organization that they own, that's linked direct to their customers, should be the foundational elements of pretty much what they do in the decision. So we're very much in favor of helping organizations get the best use of the data that they have and they collect. How do they manage that? How do they improve the view of it? What has always been the case is that most organizations can have quite a narrow but deep view. So they might know a consumer, but what they will know, and if they do know a consumer, they might know what they've bought from them or how they engage with them, but they don't know much around them. They don't know what else is going on in their lives. They don't know what the other, perhaps what their demographics might be, or their lifestyle or life stage. So organizations like ourselves provide that color, that extra dimension of what is a consumer actually like. Whilst that has been, as I say, something we've done for many, many years, what's really interesting at the moment, and retail media is a really great example, is that certainly in digital media and digital advertising, as we're seeing signal loss, it's hard because cookies are being deprecated despite changes in Google's position. Because cookies are being deprecated, there's less information available for organizations to make decisions about how they advertise. So that is bringing certainly third-party data and other data sets to the fore to help fill that gap, fill that knowledge vacuum that exists.
So retail media networks are feeling a tension between precision and scale. You're enriching that data with privacy safe third party data. How does that help resolve that trade off between those two things?
Well, look, so we're like ourselves. We're in the fortunate position where we have a view of pretty much every adult in the UK based on the models and the data that we've got, and pretty much every household in the UK. So from a scale perspective, we're able to tell a story, if you like, about every household in the UK, what they're like, as I say, their lifestyle, their life stage, what they're most likely to buy and be interested in. So where a retailer has got in a retail media network has got really excellent data around perhaps specific purchase behavior for that retailer, there are still gaps, and we fill those gaps with that color. And the good news is we've got the scale. So we don't where a retailer may have whatever a few million customers that they can have as part of their network. We're pretty much able in every instance to provide more insight and more information about them, so that they can create a better audience, a more targeted audience for their the users of the retail media network. The other thing that's really important is that, as we know, right, as consumers, you and I are engaging with multiple devices quite often, all the time, right? So that's whether that's our smartphones or while we're watching TV, whatever. Where we've got a really great view is the ability to link those devices together, so that actually, if we want to run a campaign and we can effectively run them across a campaign, we still know with a fair degree of confidence that we're targeting the right person in each instance. So that's how we help our retail media clients.
Speaking of those consumers, their behavior is changing dramatically. We're seeing in a lot of cases less loyalty, definitely seeing more value seeking, and undoubtedly, as you kind of alluded to, more channel hopping. How is that forcing retailers to then rethink how they activate and measure that media data?
I think well, first of all, in some ways, the challenge has always been there, right? The only difference is there are more outlets, if you like, for a consumer to consume that media. So the challenge has always been there. It's just that there's more opportunities to both see the ads and then measure the impact. I think, again, with cookies sort of being much less reliable, then it's a more difficult challenge. But I think what's happening is, thankfully, those retail media networks, they very much definitely got their heads around the fact that there's an opportunity for them to engage more effectively with their customers, give them more relevant ads, give them more relevant value. But because they're working with people like ourselves, then it's a bit easy for them to say, okay, but how am I seeing this person in multiple different environments? Am I seeing them in different channels? Can I draw all of that together to understand whether somebody's engaged with my ad or gone on to buy something? And what we're seeing, so that's an element of collaboration with people like us, but we're also seeing organizations and retail media collaborate amongst themselves to an extent, and also with the agency ad tech players. Why are they doing that? Because actually that helps generate scale. You've only got your own customers in your retail media network and somebody else has got theirs. Bring that together and collaborate, then actually you create more scale for advertisers to target their campaigns. And the reality is, ad agencies, ad tech, everybody wants scale. You've got to be able to deliver an ad campaign in a meaningful number.
Practically speaking, what does that sort of interoperability unlock then for retailers that are trying to maximize the value of their own data assets? Like, do you have like sort of I don't know, a layman's terms, real world example, hypothetical even?
Look, I mean, I think the two ways they're doing that monetization is obviously within their own site, the ability to then say, right, okay, let's serve ads to and serve content to consumers who are on our site. And that might be through that kind of core product offering, but increasingly that might be things that retailer doesn't necessarily sell themselves, but is relevant to their marketplace. So it could be, if it's a relatively high value audience, then do you put high value car ads in and around the inventory, because it's still relevant even if it's not core to that retail company themselves. And then outside of that, it's how those retailers are packaging up their own audiences to say, look, we know what these people are like. We know what they're most likely to be interested in buying. We know what you should be showing them. Let's lift and shift that audience so that when they're on other devices or on other devices in other channels, they can still be show relevant content. And again, what we're doing is helping bridge that gap, so it's easier for those audiences to be targeted and to be measured in those other channels.
But this collaboration sounds ideal, but then, I mean, to me, and this may not be true, it sounds hard to execute. What then would need to be in place, both technically and perhaps even culturally, for collaboration to work at scale?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? So there are definitely, and it's not our bag so much, but there are definitely platforms that enable retail media retailers to enter the market in a degree of plug and play way. That I'm sure there'll be links or ways to find those organizations who've got that platform capability that make it easier to package, create inventory, and for that inventory to be bought. It's effectively a form of programmatic advertising. I think, though, the question, the real question, I think what's really, really exciting is that there has been a real mind shift within retailers who have gone, oh, for a world where basically, and many organizations will do this, let's just put my arms around my data, right? It's my crown jewels. I can't allow anything to happen to that data. To, wait a minute, this is an asset that can really drive value for our business. Let's do that, and value to our customers as well. So we now have many, many more experts within the retail businesses who are saying, wait a minute, let's look at this in a different way. Let's see how we can drive value from the asset, make sure content is relevant to our consumers, but create a media solution for agencies and brands that really works. It's a form. I mean, I've been in the data world for a long time, so I really love it when you got more organizations who are using data in an intelligent way. So it's kind of like I feel like it's a democratization of the data, and I think that's great because it's more choice, it works effectively, and it drives innovation across all media.
We're early 2026, recording this late January. I assume, people will probably hear this in February. But looking at last year's spend patterns, what do you think they reveal about shifting consumer priorities? And then what should retailers and brands be planning as we head into this year?
Well, look, I mean, I think consumers, there's uncertainty everywhere, right? I mean, clearly there's a lot of geopolitical uncertainty, and we can see economic uncertainty. So I think what we're seeing with consumers is always a desire for value for money, and a sense that they can get access to the best possible deals. That feels a bit more heightened now than perhaps it has been historically. What I do think, though, I think that consumers are much more savvy around how data is used than often they're given credit for. I think a lot of people understand that there's effectively a data exchange. Share more of your data, you'll get more relevant content, you get more relevant offers. I think people know that. So I think what they care about is, yes, being able to get good offers, good content, and I think they're prepared to have more of their data used in that environment in exchange for those good offers and those good content. And again, I think that really plays to retail media because they know what people are like, they know what people buy. So I think there's a good value exchange. There's a positive story there for consumers that certainly retailers can support. I think more broadly, the fragmentation, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but the fragmentation in the market, driven by retail media in part, right? How you describe an audience versus how your competitor describes an audience, and you all want to make drive value from the asset, doesn't necessarily make it that easy for advertising agencies and ad tech, right? So the more consistency that this emerging space can get to make it easier for ad tech and ad agencies to buy and buy media and measure the effectiveness of media, I think that will allow retail media to be much more effective, drive more value, drive more revenue, which actually then can still drive value back to the consumer. So I think those are trends that we're starting to see. And I really, really hope they solidify through 2026, because I just think we'll then have a much better and healthier environment and market.
And, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you what you think of the role of artificial intelligence in all of this, particularly as we're, a couple of years into the latest of what some would say is many of different ages of AI, but definitely the most prominent one. How has that shaped, or how do you think it will shape, or even both, the future going ahead for both yourself, for retail media networks, and probably for consumers as well?
I mean, again, it's such an exciting time to be part of this, not just witnessing it, right, but part of it. Um, Especially as an individual and a business that's involved in data, because clearly the technology is amazing, and just keeping pace with how that technology is developing is difficult. And we're seeing clearly how AI will drive things like the creation of individually more personalized creatives. Clearly, it'll be involved in buying decisions, all of that sort of stuff. People know that probably much better than me. But what's really exciting for people like us is that AI relies on data to work, right? If you put rubbish data into an AI into an AI engine, it will just spit rubbish out the other end. So really, what it means is that those organizations that have got access to high quality data will get better value from AI, and that might be because it's a better quality creative. It might be a better bidding decision. It might be hyper personalization that just drives a much better message to the consumer. A whole range of different things, right? But I think data is and high quality data is at its heart. So going right back to your first question, first party data, even more valuable, not less valuable, even more valuable than it has been before. Retail media, probably even more likely to be even more valuable because again, it's predicated on real buying decisions of consumers. And then again, data like we're fortunate enough to have as well, scaled, accurate, clean, transparent, privacy safe, driving AI decisions. So again, I mean, it maybe we'd all be a bit of a fool to predict anything with AI, but I feel really certain that high quality data is going to be the thing that really unlocks the value.
Excellent. Well, this is fascinating stuff. Colin, this is great. I've loved having you on the show. If one wanted to find out more about yourself and about Experian Marketing Services, where would you send them?
Well, first of all, certainly go to our website, experian.com or experian.uk also. But I'd love to hear from people. I mean, whatever comments you get or if people want to contact us directly, please do so. We've got lots of heritage in this space, but we love the fact that we're learning and discovering so much more in this evolving market.
Excellent. Well, thanks for taking the time to be on.
Brilliant. Thank you, Richard.